Let's see what MBT said. I think I saw this video. Why does Yu-Gi-Oh! Semi-limited list even exist? So I initially thought of one word. Does anyone know that word? I feel like it's obvious. If I told you, chat, there's a one word answer, correct. The answer, if you told me like why does, or if you asked me why it existed and I had to give you a one word, I would say malicious. Malicious is the answer, chat. Because like Destiny Hero Malicious is one of the few cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, chat, that every single time it has been at 3, it has eventually broken through and become like at least debatable, problematic, or like incredibly high tier meta, chat. And it's a card that is ping-ponged between 2 and 3 multiple times on the ban list, and every time it's at 3, it's like crazy. Outside of that specific card, no, I don't think the semi-limited list needs to exist, chat. Destiny Hero Malicious, to me, you could argue, is the only card in the entire game that should be on it. But if you told me we could take Malicious off of it and then just get rid of it, I think I'd be fine with that. Like if Heroes became like better, like okay, I'll just live with that. I'll live with Heroes becoming like a meta deck if it means that the semi-limited list just doesn't need to exist anymore. Like I'll deal with that. I feel like it'd probably be played in somewhere else too. Finra, I think, needs it. I mean, but really though, like what's the big difference between 2 Finra and 3 Finra? Like other than just the cap G, the statistics go from 66% to 30. Like other than just the pure, because Finra can search itself, and like there's a field spell that also searches Finra, and decks that splash Finra, chat, can like also play that field spell. Decks like Vanquish Soul and all these like arbitrary decks that play like Little Cash Chirapac, like they can just play the field spell too, to like as like a third copy of Finra. So I don't even think with Finra like that extra number makes that, like with Malicious, the actual function of the card, chat, like what you can do with it completely changes with 2 copies of Malicious and 3. 2 copies of Finra and 3, like it doesn't change what you can do with the card, it just changes how often you see it. Malicious, like what you can do with it just changes completely. I don't understand the disdain for semi-limited. It's just because people think it's unnecessary. Like unless you have the OCG ideology, BP, because in the OCG they have like 30 cards on it. You know, like the OCG uses the semi-limited list, chat, in a completely different way than we do in the TCG. But like if MBT's argument is like it's not necessary, like I think that's a legitimate argument that the semi-limited list is just not necessary. You know, because I'm trying to think of a card, chat, that's powerful enough to hit, but you only would want it at like 2. You know what I mean? Because like the only time I remember it really having a significant impact, chat, and this was, I think, just because you had to run a package with it, was Fusion Destiny. But I like Fusion Destiny is like the only example of like, okay, that did hurt it a lot. But I think that's just because you had to play, well, hold on, not Malicious, obviously Malicious. But I think that was because you had to play like bricks with that card. You had to play bricks with that specifically. Rat Pierre. Is there a big difference between what you can do with 3 Rat Pierres and there probably is, yeah. There probably is a difference between like what you could do with 3 Rat Pierres and 2 Rat Pierres. Gamma should be at 3. Gamma at 1 is like one of the fucking worst hits ever, but that's just my opinion. All right, let's see what MBT's talking about.
Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and it's time for me to do what I do best. Get unnecessarily mad about something that doesn't matter in a card game that nobody plays. Let's talk about the semi-limited.
I don't know about that. Does no one play Yu-Gi-Oh, chat? Like, jeez. Let's turn this up a little bit.
Limited list. So if you're unfamiliar with Yu-Gi-Oh, this may surprise you, but sometimes Konami prints cards that are just a little bit too good. Unlike our cousins in cardboard, Magic the Gathering, and Pokemon, we neither have...
God. Press 1 if MBT cannot make a video without mentioning Magic the Gathering in the first 30 seconds. I'm gonna make that an unofficial challenge, chat. Like seriously, I'm gonna just set aside some indiscriminate amount of money, and I'm gonna do like a full week. And if he doesn't mention the word set rotation or Magic the Gathering, I'll just donate money to charity. But he won't do it, so I won't have to pay anything. He will always mention those to either set rotation or Magic the Gathering. I'm just saying, Magic the Gathering and set rotation. I'd be down to do it. But he needs to get through without using those two things. He can't be privy of it, chat. If you guys tell him, then that ruins it. Anyways.
Rotation nor alternate formats. And as a result, if a card is printed that is just a little bit too strong, we kind of have to live with it. The only tool in our arsenal when it comes to resolving these outliers is the ban list. Now, I assume the concept of a ban list isn't particularly alien. If you're playing Magic, Pokemon, or the Harry Potter TCG, you're probably familiar with it. What you might not be familiar with is a little idiosyncrasy that only Yu-Gi-Oh! Has. Of course, there's the banned section of the list. This is where the cards that cannot see play in any way, shape, or form are held. There's the limited section of the ban list, meant to keep individual cards to a singular copy, usually meant to stop cards that combo with themselves, are just too oppressive if you can wield two of them at once, or otherwise have idiosyncrasies that keep them in that position. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Has something else. A list under limited for cards that you can play 2 copies of. The semi-limited list. Now in Yu-Gi-Oh! You can only play 3 copies of any given card already. So the semi-limited list doesn't do a lot to strategies. This has left its purpose kind of confusing. It tends to be a location where a significant amount of cards go that require a slap on the wrist, but Konami wants to be a little more delicate with the slap. The weirdness in ban list philosophy that this
I have to be honest, yeah, that's kind of like what the OCG does. I mean, if you look at like Snake Eye Ash or High Kieran, it's like what did we just say? Like should those cards be hit harder? Like yeah, they should have been hit harder. If they were hit harder, then Fire King Snake Eye wouldn't be the best deck in the OCG post ban list. But like, you know what I mean? Like he's kind of right. It's like you put these cards on here when you want to give the deck like, or you want to get cards a slap on the wrist, but like not too harsh. You know what I mean? It's like, is that really how you should use it? But I don't know.
Semi-limited list exemplifies is the subject of today's video. Today I want to interrogate why is there a semi-limited list. The first reason is consistency.
Okay.
This is usually what people refer to when they describe the purpose of the semi-limited list. If a card was at 3 and is now at 2, it is slightly harder to find in your opening hand. If we pull up the hypergeometric calculator, we can see that any given 3 of has about a 34% chance to show up at least
Okay, so 1 out of 3 games you'll open with the card.
1 copy in your opening hand. Slap that sucker on the semi-limited list and all of a sudden, that number dwindles to about
How significant? I mean, I don't know, from a probability standpoint, it does seem significant, chat. Because the first one is 1 out of every 3 duels you will open with the card. Now, it's 1 out of every 5 duels. Because it's under 25%. But it still would make me pissed off if the person opened with it, though. You know, like, Called by the Grave is like a prime example, chat. If they put if Called by the Grave is at 3, then it goes to 2, I'd still be really mad if someone opened with Called by the Grave at 2. You know what I mean? Like, that's just interesting, I guess.
23. That's a pretty steep drop, especially when you're dealing with numbers that are already around a third. But is this preferable? Taking a step back from the obvious fact that putting a card from 3 to 2 does decrease the likelihood that you are going to open it, and therefore does decrease the power of the decks in which that card is usually found at 3 copies, is a consistency hit the best way to curtail a card's power? Let's think about a hypothetical. What if there's an individual card that if you find it in your opener reads, you win the game? And for ease of understanding, let's call that card Snake Eye Ash. You load into a game versus an opponent, open the card, reveal it to them, and they walk off cursing saying, oh my god, I can't believe I lost to that BS card. Well, great news for your opponent. The new list is out, and this card has moved to 2. You don't have money for a new deck, so you unsleeve a singular card and roll up to locals with the exact same brew. And as luck would have it, you play the exact same player for round 1. You open your grip, and what do you know? You hit a 23% chance, reveal the card to your opponent, at which point they throw up their cards and say, I can't believe I lost to it again, I've been sacked. And their response kind of makes sense, right? Let's think about that card in the abstract. Is it good? that a card that says I win the game if I draw this exists in any capacity? No. Making a card that's responsible for an unfair or extremely powerful interaction less available certainly makes that less likely to occur. But when it does occur, it is going to precipitate an extremely feels bad game state, frequently one in which your opponent doesn't get to access their reserves of skill at all. You just win the game off of some BS interaction that the creators of the game obviously know is a problem, but don't take reasonable steps to stop. The important part of that card is the text on it, not the number of copies in your deck. If a gameplay loop is frustrating or unfair, it should be removed, not made less frequent. But consistency isn't the only reason that cards end up on the semi-limited list. They also occasionally show up for reason 2, repeatability. Cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are very accessible.
What does he mean when he says this, chat? Repeatability. Is this where like Destiny Hero Malicious falls in? A card that can be used multiple times. Like you can use it as you can use it an equivalent to how many copies exist. Because that would be like Reborn Tengu. Like, you could use as many Tengus as are allowed in your deck. Like Atlantean Dragoons. Okay.
There's a ton of tutors for everything under the sun, and some cards like Small World that literally tutor everything under the sun. As a result, sometimes your first turn combo can go through 2 or 3 copies of a singular card. In these situations, a semi-limit can be theoretically meaningful. Let me give you an example. A couple of formats ago, an Isold into Baron-centric Rescue Ace deck was a playable option in the top tier. That deck utilized the majority non-warrior Rescue Aces alongside a couple of warrior ones to go into the now banned Link 2. The non-warriors would be converted in a preliminary step to a warrior-type Link 2. And guess who fits the bill? SP Little Knight. You would go SP into Isold, and then later in the turn, go into another copy of SP because she was an integral part of the end board. Now, this deck occasionally played a third copy of SP, because if your copy of SP was outed on your opponent's first turn, and you'd used one to get to Isold, you kind of did need a third one in the back pocket in order to crack back. This is a scenario where even a hit like the OCG's nonsensical SP semi-limit might make sense. On paper. In practice, if something like this happened and was meaningful, those decks would just replace the first SP that's part of the combo with some sort of generic warrior link, a ferocious flame swordsman or something. While there are reasonable theoretical underpinnings for this justification, the truth of the matter is, it just doesn't really come up that often. Reason 3, Destiny Hero Malicious.
Hey!
Okay, so sometimes a card works in such an extremely specific way that it absolutely must be on the semi-limited list. Case in point, Destiny Hero Malicious. Destiny Hero Malicious is a 6-star monster, which can be banished from the graveyard in order to summon a Destiny Hero Malicious from your deck. This card's really, really strong, and has been the backbone of a number of unfair strategies throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. If you normal summon a card like Vision Hero Vion, you can send a Destiny Hero Malicious, banish one to get another, link off for a 2, and then summon a third Destiny Hero Malicious from deck. It turns out it's not actually okay to get 3 materials worth of link summons off of one singular card. However, you can't put this card to 1, because if you do, it can't banish itself to some...
Yeah, you know what, chat? That's another thing about Malicious, is like, you can't really put Malicious to 1. It's a card that like kind of operates, again, very similar to like Reborn Tengu. If you put Malicious at 1, it literally can't trigger its effect, ever. You know what I mean? So like, kind of has to stay there. I mean, even Zodiac Rapier, right? Which at 3 and 2, what you can do is like completely different. So I would put it in this category, but it still can work at 2. Like Malicious, or it still can kind of work at 1, but like Malicious doesn't even work at 1. You know what I mean?
Another Destiny Hero.
MBT's pace is too fast. I can't ever process anything he says while the video. I mean, I'm not watching. This is watching at normal. I'm not watching that like 2. This is just normally how he talks.
Malicious, because there is not another Destiny Hero Malicious. So what do? Well, sometimes paths converge in such a way that a card like this kind of has to exist at semi. As an alternative example, Pearly's Sleepy Memory is currently on the list for a similar reason. My friend Pearly allows you to reveal 3 Pearly cards from your deck and randomly add 1 to your hand. If you can just reveal Sleepy, 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 you can guarantee it over the course of your combo. But if it's semied, you have to get a little more creative. Maybe you're forced to search it earlier, or maybe you're forced to go sleepy, sleepy, leap in case you accidentally whiff. Really corner case scenarios, but decent in terms of justification for the list's existence. Reason 4, it's a holding facility. Frequently, when a card is removed from the ban list, it doesn't go immediately from 0 to 3. Usually, it will be reintroduced to organized play by way of a limit. And then if nothing happens while it's limited, Konami will reassess. Now, they really do not like immediately moving a card from 1 to 3. Sometimes a card that's fine at 1 is absolutely not fine if you're allowed the full playset. So they sneak it back in just a little slowly by putting it in the semi-limited list. Then the next time the FNL rolls around, they move it down one more time if it's okay. The reasoning for this is pretty solid. It gives them a little bit of time to course correct if it turns out the card is actually just a little bit too good, and the damage that the card can do is pretty minimal if you're only getting one additional copy.
I have to say though, like, what MBT just said there, chat, almost all the evidence doesn't support that argument though, right? The argument that like there are not many cards that are okay to like move from 1 to 3 immediately. Because can you guys think of any card that went from like 1 to 2, but then was a problem, so it went back to 1? Like I cannot, especially in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I can't 1 for 1. When was 1 for 1 went to 2 and then went back to 1 though? I can't think of a single card, chat, that went from limited status to semi and then went back to like called by the because like I name one. Yeah, in the OCG maybe Terratop in the OCG. It went from 1 to 2 back to 1. Like I feel like that happens so seldom, chat. In like modern Yu-Gi-Oh, Pot of Desires. When was Desires at 1 in the TCG? Desires has been at 3, and it's been at 2. I don't remember it being at 1. Called by. I was like, did Called by do that, chat? Called by is like the only one that maybe went from like 3 to 2 to 1 to 2 to 1. Maybe? You're saying Pot of Desires was limited. Okay, fair enough. I feel like this happens so infrequently, chat, that a card will go from 1 to 2, and then we're like, oh shit, it's a problem. Put it back to 1. Like, it almost always goes to 3. Dark Arm Dragon? No. When Dark Arm went to 2 anime night, after that it went to 3. Did not go back to 1.
In fact, this type of semi-limit is so common in the TCG that at this point we just recognize it's part of the process in terms of a card coming back. And finally, reason 5. Hints.
What?
I'd never heard this justification for the semi-limited list until it was voiced on Twitter the other day. In response to
yeah. Stop. When you start talking about Twitter examples, you're removing all. As soon as he said that, I was like, are you using those like cringe examples when people are like, cat, this is like a hint to what's gonna happen? Like, okay, cool. Back that up with like any evidence in history. Like, what? This is. Okay, yeah. Basically, this is some stuff that people said on Twitter, not backed by anything. It's just Twitter people.
For the semi-limited list until it was voiced on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. All the other reasons, like, totally logical. But this thing is brand new, and it just so happens that we heard it last week on Twitter.
The other day, in response to the OCG's list, which semi-limits SP Little Knight, a card that people usually play at exactly 1 copy, one user chimed in to let people know that, in fact, this was a coded message from Konami. Because no region gives justification for movement on the ban list anymore, this was Konami's way of letting players know that SP Little Knight, an incredibly expensive card, was shortlisted to be hit on a future ban list. That if you have a bunch of copies, you should start piecing them out now. This is insane. And the frustrating part of this is that I think it also might be completely true. Why else are you semiing that card? I have no idea. So that exhausts the reasons for why the semi-limited list...
Why? Because Konami just puts, like, bruh, if it was in the TCG, I would agree with that. Like, why else? You'd be like, because the OCG just puts everything on the semi-limited list. I'm trying to think of some other stupid card they put on, like, the semi-limited list, chat. It's not coming to me. I don't think they're wrong though. They do that a lot recently. Remember the Maximum Crisis? Yeah, I don't know.
Exists at all.
Hulk. Was Hulk semi-limited? I mean, yeah, Hulk eventually got limited, but Hulk was also just like busted. I mean, Hulk was destined to be banned, chat, the moment it was printed. I don't know. Maybe Hulk was at 2. Wasn't Firewall semi-limited in the OC? I know Firewall was at 3 and 1 and 0. I don't know if Firewall was ever at... It definitely wasn't at 2 in the TCG. And I don't remember the OCG. Abyss Soldier. I mean, bro, but now you're talking about, like, GOAT format. You know what I mean? You're talking about GOAT format. Like, come on.
From my time playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I've been a staunch, semi-limited list abolitionist. I think it's really weird that we have a list that mostly just serves to make the game a little more sacky, but not one iota more fun. But I hope you can see some of the justifications for why the list exists in the first place. In my opinion, the weird corner case scenarios of cards like Destiny, Hero Malicious, and Pearly Sleepy Memory, and the holding facility does make sense. I don't buy any of those other ones, though. That's it. Bye-bye.
That's interesting. I wonder if the holding list is even necessary, though, anymore, chat. Like, seriously. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm trying to think of a card right now, chat. Name a card right now, chat, that if it went from 1 to 3 would be an issue, but at 2 would not be an issue. I feel like the only examples of that, chat, would be draw cards. Would be like, maybe Card of Demise. That's like the only one. Like, chat, seriously, name one or 1 day a piece. Like, yeah, 1 day a piece. Like, if you put 1 day a piece, chat, at 3, that shit'd be crazy. Like, Runic Stun would go wild. Oh my god, 3 1 day a piece. Stop it. But like, there's not another card. No. The card has to be legal, chat. Rapier, bro. What is Zodiac doing with like no Dryden and no Barrage? Like, what are you doing, Regeki? What is Regeki? I feel like Regeki's already at 3. What is Regeki even at, chat? Is Regeki at 1, 2, or what? I have not played a Regeki in a long time. Regeki's already at 3, Anime Night. No. Again, chat, name a card that's at 1. So BP says Shavara. You know what I mean? It's like, I think Konami actually believes that, chat. That if they put Shavara at 3, like, the game broken. But if they put Shavara at 2, it's like, okay, we can live with this. So yeah, I think Konami believes Shavara. But like, generally speaking, chat, most Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are limited right now, if you put them at 3, it probably wouldn't cause a problem. Except that, again, I think the draw cards could be an issue. Monster Gate. I mean, but like, okay, give me the practical application for Monster Gate. Like, if you were telling me like grass is unbanned, like, what are we doing with Monster Gate? You know, and made like Infernoids, you know, like it's Reinforce FTK. Wait, Ruin Force FTK. Actually, I feel like the only ones would be FTK, chat. Like Life Equalizer and shit. But like, you wouldn't even want to put those cards at 2 though. You know what I mean? Like Life Equalizer, you know, Chaos. Okay, you know what? I give you that one. This is like one of the few examples, chat. If this card went to, like, we sold this card at 3, this card at 3 is like ridiculous. You know what I mean? I feel like at 2 it's ridiculous too, though. Yeah, I feel like at 2 it'd still be ridiculous. So nah, maybe that doesn't prove the argument. Because the argument is like, the card at 2 we can like tolerate it, but at 3 is too much. Because I feel like Chaos Space is still broken. If it's at 2, I feel like it still feels pretty broken. Foolish Burial, nah. You wouldn't want Foolish Burial at any higher numbers, chat. You know what I mean? Any other videos? If you guys have videos, I guess we're in the video part. There's like nothing to talk about with Yu-Gi-Oh, chat. Am I the only one who feels that way? If I'm the only one who feels that way, just tell me. Like, Cap, you're the only one who feels that. It's like nothing to talk about. You know what I mean?